Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our debate. Thanks to everything that's going on and all the people who have helped, we are here today to see the Irish National Debate Champions go off against some of our very own MTSU debate people. Hello, my name is Jessica Rogers, and I am going to be your moderator for today. I am a psychology and communications studies major, and I am from Olivia, North Carolina. Today, I am the president of Pi Kappa Delta. It's an honor society that informs people about some of the great things about persuasion, and we like to show some great ways to persuade. And thanks to our guests and our very own members of our MTSU speech and debate team, we're going to show you some amazing persuasion. To start, let me give you a rundown of what's going to happen. Today, each member of our debaters are going to get one 5-minute speech. Now this is a modified version of British parliamentary. Each member will go up to the podium when they are called upon, and they will give their speech. The Irish are for the topic, and the MTSU debaters are against it. And they will also have a chance to question one another. They are allowed, while one team is speaking, the other team has the right of point of information, where they can stand after the first minute of the other team's speech to be able to ask a question to kind of get clarity about the topic and their point. And with that boring start, let's go ahead and move on to introducing our debaters. To start, we're going to introduce our guest, starting with the Irish Times National Champions. We are going to start with Kalina. She is from the Forgotten County of Donegal in the northwest of Ireland. It has gotten the nickname Forgotten County because even when the English were colonizing the other 6 counties in the north of Ireland, they left them out because they didn't want them, or so I've been told. She has studied law and politics for her undergraduate degree and dreams of working in foreign affairs someday, maybe even as a diplomat, because the housing is nice. Moving on to our second Irish debater, we have Owen. Owen is from Cork, known as the Rebel County in the south of Ireland. It is known as the real capital of Ireland, and he describes it as Ireland's Texas. He is currently in his final year of law and political science in Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland, and this year he is serving as an auditor of a law society there. And he dreams of becoming a barrister one day. And finally, we have Louise. Louise is studying law and political science at Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland, and she is from Kells in Cometh, which is famous for producing the world's best produced medieval manuscript and the Oscar-winning film, The Secret of Kells. Louise comes from a very talkative and opinionated family, so she had no choice but to learn to debate early. She is passionate about Irish language, climate change, and Taylor Swift. And with that, we know our guests better. Let's move on to introduce our MTSU debaters. We are starting off with Joey Mego. Joey Mego is a senior from Jackson, Tennessee, and double majors in physics and Japanese. He is also the captain of the MTSU team. And one of our debaters representing the Honors College is John Ajura. He majors in mechatronics engineering and is from Nigeria. He is the novice winner of Cleveland College's debate tournament and the novice winner of Pellissippi's debate tournament. And with that, we're moving on to our final debater for the MTSU team, which is Ethan Schmidt. And he majors in journalism based on the social justice track. He transferred through a fellowship to the Honors College and minors in communication studies. He hosts a podcast and he hosts a radio show here on campus. He is a reporter for MTSU Sidelines and is a social media operator for MTSU's Young Democrat Socialists of America. And with that, we now know our debaters. Let's get into some things the audience should know before the debate starts. All of the sides have been predetermined. They are not chosen nor reflect the debaters in any way whatsoever. And questions, please leave them until the end of the debate so that the debaters have more time to question each other and overall prove their point and persuade you. Now with that, let's start with our first affirmative debater, which is Louise from Ireland.
A chachiirlig a bhótáir a lochtampar zura agus a chóscaláir is Mr. Louise Nucalling agus tá mé winnamucha a bheith an seo. That's just a little bit of Irish in case you forget where we're all from, and hopefully not. I'm sure it's clear from our accents, but my name is Louise is what I just said, and I'm really delighted to be addressing you on this very, very important motion, actually. And before I begin, I want you to know that aside from Irish, I also speak some French, some Spanish, and un po' Italiano, which is actually crucial to the arguments that I'm going to be making. So when we got this motion, my first thought was, geez, the World Cup isn't until 2027, because in my opinion, the World Cup is the Rugby World Cup, just because that is a sport Ireland is actually good at. And incidentally, the next Rugby World Cup will be taking place in the States, so I'll see you then. But I digress. We are talking about soccer. Men's soccer, I believe is what you call it. And there are 3 reasons why you actually absolutely don't deserve to host this tournament. First of all, it's football, not soccer. And here come my language skills. Football in French, le foot. In Spanish, football. In German, foosball. In Irish, pelle, if you're interested, but that doesn't really make my point. I don't know if you've noticed now, there is a little bit of a theme here. You guys are the only country that calls this sport soccer. As I understand, when you say football, you mean that thing Taylor Swift's boyfriend plays. That's not football. Now, I know you have a fantastic ladies team, but I have to ask, why are you mad to host something that there's just not really the audience for it within America? Because this is the point here. I can't express the passion and the love that this lights up in football-loving countries, in Africa, in South America, in Europe. I went on a date with this Brazilian guy when I was in Italy during the World Cup in 2022, and he was like, Louise, this is literally the most significant cultural event for the people of Brazil. It's like Christmas, it brings everyone together. And don't get me started when the Italian local team won whatever tournament they had. I nearly got run over, such was the joy and the passion that it excited within the local population. So this point is really just an appeal. I know you don't love men's football or soccer, whatever you want to call it. You know you don't love it. One man's trash is another man's treasure. So let a country that will treasure the World Cup host it. Secondly, if you do like soccer/football and you want it to flourish, don't host it here in 2026. I'm not going to mince my words. You're really quite bad at men's soccer. There's a phrase in Irish, achni and Kirog ella, that essentially means takes one to know one. And it is the fact that I'm really bad at football that qualifies me to say, so are you. Certainly the men. I've no objection to every single Super Bowl final being held in the USA or whatever, I don't know, the baseball final is called. That's your thing. But hand on my heart, the USA does tend to crash and burn in this kind of tournament, and however bad it is here for men's soccer now, however much it's struggling, a humiliating home defeat will set it back. And this is something I know because we in Ireland are highly familiar with crashing and burning in international tournaments. So if you love the game, and if you want it to thrive in the USA, I implore you, do not host it in 2026. Just wait a little while. Thirdly, and this point's a tiny little bit more serious, just be generous, okay? Tournaments like this, they provide a huge amount of economic stimulus to the places in which they're being held. It's no Eras tour, but it is very significant. The USA, as I'm sure you're all aware because you live here, I guess, it's a very wealthy, industrialised democracy. And, whether you like or you loathe Biden, I do read my Financial Times, and I know the economy is growing, etc., more jobs are being created, all that kind of thing. And this is a point that is quite important, and it is actually going to be elaborated on both my teammates, but it is a gift and a privilege to be able to host this tournament. It does provide a huge amount of financial benefits, it does really stimulate local economy, it does produce a huge amount of wealth where it's being held, and it can, in this way, it can create kind of a long-term economy and future benefits. So consider that maybe this tournament should be given to somewhere that could really benefit from it in a tangible way. And not just because their population loves football, but somewhere that could benefit from the wealth that this generates. Someone where the population could really be improved from, the population's lives could really be improved from the gift of this economic stimulus. So what I'm saying here is just consider it. It's a huge gift, so maybe it should go to somewhere that will really deserve that gift. So in summary, you don't love it, you're not good at it, give it to somewhere that needs it. Gur míle maith agóibh, and that means thank you very much in Irish.
Thank you, Marie. Now we're going to have our first negation speech by John Azra from mtsu.
Well, I would say everyone welcome. I'd like to thank you on behalf of my complaint here. That was a wonderful speech. Well, she spoke a lot in Irish. That was nice. So I also like to speak my own country language. I'm from Nigeria, as you have heard. So let me say, okay, my name is John, as usual. You have heard that. So now, basically, they made some crucial points here, and I have to admit that that's right. That's the truth. So, but now let's look at those points. She started off with saying, audience. We do not have the audience for soccer. But I'd like to say that in 2014 alone, in the World Cup of 2014, we have 26.5 million Americans who watched the World Cup final between Germany. Now, this was more than 22.5 million people who tuned in to watch the Game 2 of the NBA Finals on the Sunday before. Now, what does that show? It shows that there's a high value for the game of soccer in America today. And I like to say soccer because that's what we know it in today as America. Also, there's Messi in America today, we know that. And a lot of money is being spent in watching soccer. Like, stadiums are literally being filled. Stadiums are not filled. So the fact that you're saying there's no audience, I disagree. If there was no audience, if Messi came, nobody should pay tickets to watch that game, evidently. But the fact that we are buying tickets with our hard-earned money and we're able to pay and fill up those stadiums shows that we value soccer. And that tends to disagree with what my opponent here is saying. Okay, so with that, just to say that if we love soccer, that we should not host it because we have a trash team, and that by we hosting and suffering an international defeat, we will not improve in the game. But I'd like to point out that we have hosted this game in 1994. Now, at that time, we never had a professional soccer league. We never had a professional team. But after that World Cup, we had the founding of MLS. That's the Major League Soccer. So what does that show? It shows that the moment we have World Cup, we host World Cup in America, our games tends to improve. So with that, I'd like to go into my major points for today. My first point is the ethics of FIFA. Ethics of FIFA. Now, what do I mean? It means I want to take us through a step-by-step process of the bidding process that led to America getting to host the World Cup in 2026. Now, I'd like to point towards that this decision of hosting this World Cup was approved by FIFA in March 2018. Now, according to FIFA, there's 4 phases in deciding who hosts the World Cup. Now, these 4 phases are, the first phase is setup, second phase is preparation, third phase is evaluation, and the fourth phase is vision. Now, in the setup, countries that are interested in hosting the World Cup bring forth their bid. Now, only 2 bids were brought forth, Morocco and the North American trio. Now, the North American trio of America, Mexico, and Canada. Now, the only second bid available was Morocco. So now, meaning that the scope of what we are looking at is going to be these 2 countries that decided to believe that they deserve to host the World Cup, and the Irish the island never believed that they were able to host the World Cup, so they didn't bring forth a bid. But only 2 countries who believe that they can host the World Cup brought forth a bid. That's Morocco and the North American trio of United States, Mexico, and Canada. Now, upon bringing forth this bid, they prepared and gave us a document of what each of them are going to achieve. Now, the United States in their document pointed that they are going to generate about $1.6 billion. Unlike the bid from the Morocco side, which from the Morocco side about $785 million. Now, you see that is a very wide margin. So it shows that we in the American bid was much stronger, and they also what you call the bid evaluation. Now, under this process, there's what you call the risk assessment. Yeah.
Do you think just because a country has more money, they deserve an opportunity to host a worldwide event more?
Well, we're not talking about you have much money, we are looking at overall factors in it. So money is also considered, and it's also an important factor, because if you cannot afford to host a tournament, then you don't deserve to host that tournament. And I'll give you a reason why. Morocco was going to they did not have enough stadiums, and they had to repair those stadiums with about $16 billion. Now that's about 16% of their GDP. Now, compared to America, who was not going to have to rebuild or build any stadium, and that would be less cost. Now, which will you go for? The one of less cost or the one of higher cost? Definitely one of less cost. Now, also, I'd like to take us through the decision making. Now, that's the voting procedures. Now, in here, the FIFA goes and decides. A council is made to decide who gets to vote and win this. Now, the second point is the experience. The United States has hosted the World Cup once for men. They hosted the Women's World Cup twice. Now, we are the most, that shows you are highly experienced in the hosting of World Cup. Now, also, according to Washington Post, the last World Cup held by the United States broke a record that has not been broken to every record has not been broken to date. The record of the most attended World Cup with an average of 68,000 plus in every match. Now, this record has not been broken to date. So that shows you that we have what it takes to even host it in 2026, and we have to do it much, much better. Now, we also have a legacy on ground in all these things, because most of these stadiums that we built in 1994 are major stadiums that are even relevant and used for us today. So these stadiums are useful in our time today. I like to say we have contributed much to the game of soccer and a lot to it. And with this, I'd like to stand up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Now that John is gone, we are pulling in our second affirmative debater, which is Owen from Ireland.
Okay, just give me 2 seconds to sort out my papers. My time. Okay, Díomh gach duine a chairde a chlíne úsle agus a lucht an rasúra. Is mi seo Ono Rian agus tá áthas an down a rúntáchta seo a phlé an neocht. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ono Rian, and I am somewhat delighted to be talking on a topic that I know very, very little about. I am a debater after all. So the opening of my speech was, it wasn't just a bunch of time-filling mumbo-jumbo. It might have been time-filling, but it wasn't mumbo-jumbo. It was my native language, Gaeilge or Irish. And I guess the reason why that's important is I want to begin with a little story from my time in Irish College. So Irish College isn't Irish University. Irish College is part of the cultural fabric of Ireland. So teenagers from all over our lovely Emerald Isle will gather together in Irish-speaking areas, or Gaeltachts, for 3 weeks in what essentially is a summer camp. Now, when I did this, it was 2016, and at that time, Ireland was playing the European Football Championships in France. And for once, we were actually doing pretty well. And my memory of that summer is something that I think, even as a country, that we have Gaelic football, we have hurling, we have rugby, we have these other sports, but soccer, as you want to call it, we'll go on year terms for this evening because you are hosting us after all. But soccer is something that we can relate to. It's something that we love. And when we were in Irish College, there was 400 16-year-olds packed into these halls. It was the height of summer, no air conditioning, no water, no everything. Everyone was sweating it out. But I still remember us in our group games drawing 1-1 with Sweden. I remember Belgium clattering us at 3-0. But I remember beating Italy 0-1, which was one of the best moments of that summer. I do remember also getting knocked out in the quarterfinals by France. Shane Duffy was sent off in the 66th minute with a red card, and he was absolutely robbed for that. And it's something I will never forget. Now, that's a beautiful story. I'm sure you're all kind of wiping away the tears at the stories of my youth. But it's something a lot of people in this room probably can't relate to. Like, soccer is not part of the US national culture in the same way, and that's okay. I mean, I don't care about American football. And like, I shouldn't, it's not part of my culture, but it's part of yours. I think if you ask the average American person, can they name their local soccer team, or can they name the biggest player on that local soccer team, they probably couldn't, and there's a reason for that. I just want to pick up on a couple of points that John made. He said that the US bid was so much stronger, and he said that, you know, they had more money. Well, I think if they cared about the game so much, and if they cared about developing that game, maybe you could have donated some of that, you know, famous US American dollars to countries like Morocco, to countries that don't have that like economic opportunity to host these major events, and allow them to host it if you have all this money flying around. Secondly, there was like a lot of talk about, you know, the process that they went through. I don't know if anyone remembers a man by the name of Sepp Blatter, but he was the former president of FIFA, an incredibly corrupt man. The FIFA is one of the most corrupt organizations in the entire world of sporting. It is famously not a well-run organization whatsoever. So the idea that the US, you know, went through this meritocratic process is, you know, it's absolutely for the birds. Jess said at the start that, you know, these positions don't represent our own political or our own preferences. Let me tell you, I absolutely believe that you don't deserve to host this. You just don't care. You care about baseball, you care about basketball, hockey and football, and that's great. But let's get one thing straight. When it comes to world championships, you know, you call your baseball tournaments World Series. You're confused when it comes to these events. Baseball is only played in America. There's no other teams playing. You can't call that a World Series. So if we're gonna trust you with one of the largest sporting events in the world, I wouldn't be putting my money on it. 3 points that I want to kind of wrap up with quickly. I did a quick Google before this and found out that New Jersey is going to be the final. My uncle lives in New Jersey. I have been to New Jersey. I have not visited him in 10 years, let me tell you, and there is a reason for that. The other thing that I want to wrap up with, because I realise my time is close now, but the motion of the debate and the argument thus far presented by John is that should the US host this tournament? Well, I'm proudly wearing my Canadian top today. The tournament is actually planned to be held jointly by US, Canada and Mexico, but we've already forgotten about that this evening in the room. Another typical American-centric argument there. You already get to host too much. You've got the LA Olympics in 2028, the Rugby World Cup, as Louise mentioned, and us, the lovely debaters from the Irish Times. My mother always said, sharing is caring, so let's share the love around. The US football leagues are already the retirement homes for the fantastic players that we have over in Europe. Let's not make it the retirement home for the World Football Cup. Thank you very much for listening to me.
For that delightful speech. With that, let us welcome our second negation speaker, Ethan Schmidt.
Alrighty. Give me a couple seconds. I'm going to pull my phone here for a timer real quick. Got that in my pocket. Alrighty, and with that I'll begin. So hi y'all again, my name is Ethan Schmidt. I'm a journalism student. I'm in my 5th year of college. This is my 2nd year at mtsu. And today I want to argue in absolute opposition to this resolution that the US doesn't deserve to host the World Cup. I think we absolutely do. Now, I will say, first off, I may be a little bit biased. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and for those who don't know, we just built a brand new Major League Soccer stadium there. And I actually had the pleasure to go walk around the place with my friend Jay Duda, and it's absolutely a beautiful looking stadium, and I hope someday I get the chance to watch a game there. And I'm saying this as someone who's not a huge friend or a huge fan of soccer or sports in general myself. I really actually don't keep up that much with sports. But despite that, I definitely know this, that we absolutely do deserve to host the World Cup. You know, as my teammate said, John, in his first speech, there is absolutely a growing appetite for soccer here in the U.S. According to CNBC, in November 27, 2021, over the last quote, over the last 10 years, the MLS has become increasingly popular. The league garnered the attention of top international talent, brought in significant investments, and generated a massive social media presence, unquote. We are starting to see right now a massive growth in popularity for Major League Soccer, and for that alone, I think we absolutely should deserve to host the World Cup, because I think we've certainly shown a lot of popular support for this. I mean, even here in Nashville, we have a new stadium downtown where a lot of people like to go watch soccer games too. So for that alone, I think we absolutely deserve to host the World Cup. Also, there are also 2 years in the time between now and 2026. And of course, our opponents here have said that the men's soccer team in the U.S. sucks, and that may be true. But we still have 2 years to get better, I think. So there's still time for us to really improve. Furthermore, though, and this seems to have been a pretty important part of our debates so far, that the decision to host the World Cup was between the United States, Mexico, and Canada, and those 3 countries versus Morocco. And my last opponent up here, Owen, had said that the U.S. bid was one of the reasons why they decided to host a World Cup here in the United States was because the bid was simply stronger. We were offering more money, and my opponent had suggested that we should donate it to Morocco. However, this is simply not viable. Why should we be donating money for another country to host the World Cup? That just doesn't really make a lot of sense. And on top of that too, according to a Guardian article from June 13th, 2018, this was right after they had voted to make the U.S. and Canada and Mexico the host of the World Cup in 2026. The Guardian had reported that one of the main reasons why a lot of people voted to have the U.S. host the World Cup was because the World Cup's going to be expanding from 32 to 48 teams. And with that expansion, it's going to require a lot more resources in order to host all of those teams. Here's a quote from the article. Quote, "The logistical requirements are so huge, needing so many stadiums and training camps to host 80 matches, it is difficult to see Morocco, a serial bidder, or other less privileged countries having the opportunity," unquote.
Point of information?
Yes.
If you don't want to give the money to Morocco, would you give it to the Irish to host the World Cup?
That's actually a good question. I'm not too sure if I would say. I mean, I don't think it's very fair for really any country to be donating money to another country to be hosting, especially a sports event. I think that whoever is going to be hosting the World Cup just needs to have the resources up there, up front and center, to be able to host it. And lastly, I also want to note this too as well. There's also been discussion in this debate about how the World Cup is also an economic stimulus. As I was actually having a discussion with my partner Joey out in the hall earlier today. The World Cup actually is quite expensive, and so it's not a huge economic stimulus. It may draw like a lot of crowds, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a huge economic stimulus. So for all the reasons that I've mentioned, I argue in absolute opposition of this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ethan. With that, we are moving on to our final affirmation speech by Kalina.
Díomh an duine tá an bradal agus ásta gonna bhí an seániu ag play Maroon is far sport. Everything I said there was true. I did say it in Irish. I said, hello, my name is Cliona, and I'm so happy and proud to be here discussing my favourite thing in the world, sport. Everything I said was true, apart from the last part, which is that I do not care about sports at all. And like I would say, my two Irish friends here, none of us know anything about it, but I'm still willing to give this a good discussion and a good chat. Before I get into my main points today, I want to talk a little bit about what Ethan has come up here and said, and I want to respond to some of the ideas you've given us. First of all, Ethan tells us that Missouri, the great state of Missouri, has built a new football stadium. That's great. I have an idea for Missouri, and maybe they could put American soccer players in there and maybe get them more practice, a bit more time to get up to speed with the international community who've been playing for an awful lot longer than Missouri has built a stadium. He also talks about how soccer or football in America is becoming a lot more popular. Again, that's great, but you're about 50 years behind the international community in terms of that. Talk to anybody else in pretty much any other country in the world and they will tell you passionately that they have been fans of soccer for far, far longer. And finally, he talked to us about how the logistics are so huge and how we would have to build more stadiums, there'd need to be more infrastructure, yada, yada, yada. The thing about it is, those stadiums would in reality be absolutely wasted here in America. Who's going to be playing in them after this tournament ends? I mean, put them in somewhere, like Owen was talking about, put them in Morocco, put them anywhere else in the world, and they'll be used because they're such bastions for community and enjoyment and sport and activity in these countries. They would be used there. There would be long-standing infrastructure, and it would be far more deserved for those nations. But after kind of slating you, Ethan, I'm going to talk about the two main points that I have here today. And they fall under the broad idea of equality, and I know Americans love equality. And so, firstly, it's equality of opportunity, and secondly, it's equality of passion. And for equality of opportunity, the elite world of soccer, that shows how much I know about it, the elite world of soccer has been built upon the backs of people in developing countries, and it has been for decades and decades and decades. And like me, you don't need to know much about soccer to know that Pele, a Ghanaian player, Mo Salah, an Egyptian soccer player, or George Weah, a Liberian player, and also the first African player to win a Ballon d'Or. And again, you won't know this because you're American, but that's a soccer award. These were all African players, and they have contributed infinitely more to the game of soccer than all professional American players, not including women, combined. And all of these elite players have contributed so much to the sport, all hailing from Africa. And what has the continent of Africa gotten in return for their huge contributions to this sport? In fact, rather than being known as a continent which is so rich in talent and athleticism and skill, instead they have been the continent that has been oppressed and profited off by the West for centuries. And they are infinitely more deserving of the opportunity to host a tournament of a sport that they care so deeply about than America is. And I'm going to talk a little bit now about equality of passion. And like Owen, I want to talk about a story, a personal story. So back in 2018, I was lucky enough to be in Zanzibar, which is an island off the coast of Tanzania. And it's not an overwhelmingly rich place, financially at least. And we were coming back from the beach one evening, and I noticed there was this huge crowd of people. And they were gathered around this screen that was not much bigger than the face of that podium. It was really small. It was easily about 50 people there, glued to this TV screen. And I realised that they were all glued to the World Cup that was on that year. It had brought these people together. They were so passionate about the sport that they were sitting out there on the sand watching a tiny TV screen. And you would never ever see that in America, at least whenever it comes to soccer. These are the people who contribute to the sport, who are passionate about the sport, who know about the sport, and they are the people that are deserving of the opportunity to host a massive tournament like this. So all of this is to say that there's two things that we're missing out on in America. It's the equality of passion and it's the equality of opportunity. Like Owen said, like my colleagues have said, sharing is caring, and keeping all of these benefits to America, you've had enough of it. Like, you've got enough going on, you've had enough opportunities, and it's time to share them around a little bit more, especially to the countries who've contributed more and who have more passion for it. I'm very proud to propose the motion and to say that you don't deserve this one, maybe some other stuff. Thank you very much.
And with that, we're moving on to our final oppositions and speaker of the night, Joey Mego.
Hi, how's it going? All right, I'll start it now. Whoop, I messed up. All right, I'll start it now. I was introduced, I'm going to be the last speaker for tonight. I'm going to try and really round out our side of the case today. And what it really has come down to is, like my last opponent mentioned in their last speech, this idea of equality of opportunity and of like the general enjoyment, the passion that comes from the sport. And while I agree, one of the prevailing themes for this debate round so far has been that the passion isn't really here in the United States for soccer as compared to the rest of the world. I think this is actually more of a reason, like John mentioned in our first speech, for us to have another opportunity to host the World Cup. The U.S. is in a kind of unique situation when it comes to hosting World Cups, is we've actually done it before. And when we host a second one, we can actually see kind of like a nice before and after image of what hosting a World Cup can do for a nation that doesn't actually have that original passion for the sport. It made it explode in terms of popularity in the U.S. Sure, it didn't reach the same sort of proportionality as it does in some of these other countries where it's kind of ubiquitously popular, but it made it a lot more popular. Like John mentioned in our first speech, the whole reason we got a Major League Soccer sort of system in the first place was because we hosted the World Cup and it inspired all of that passion. So if my opponents want to talk about the equality of passion and they want to talk about how important it is to these communities all around the world, I think the U.S. deserves a shot at developing something like that. Between yourselves.
You've already got the opportunity to host it before. Is it not just a bit greedy at this point?
It's not greedy. It's a proof of concept. We want to be a bastion to show what the World Cup can do. If you host it anywhere else in the world that's already got a large proportion of soccer fans, it's not going to make any more people interested in the sport. It's not going to spread the love that comes along with the sport and the passion that comes along with the sport. It's uniquely positioned for the United States, where we're a country with the infrastructure and the want to host the World Cup, and the ability for the World Cup to expand the love of the sport. Not only support it where it already is, but make it reach more people. And we know this is possible because the World Cup that we hosted once already had the largest turnout to games of any World Cup to date.
Wait.
And so, yeah, go for it.
But what if you flop this time?
If we flop this time, we really have foiled it. But we can see, if we asked what if we flop, we wouldn't really do anything. If we're afraid of failure, we're not really going to make much progress. But we can see a burgeoning love of sports in the U.S. in general right now. We're at a time of expansion in sports. And that's something that is more unique to the U.S. It's not that we love any particular sport more than any other. We love sports. All sports. This university by itself hosts more than 17 very competitive teams nationally. If we look at major sports in the United States, we've got basketball, we've got soccer, we've got football, we've got baseball. You can find hockey teams that travel internationally. Yeah.
Again, a little greedy. We've got the rest of them.
We've got the rest of them. Well, we participate. So does everybody else. Everybody else likes to participate internationally. We are, a large place with a lot of teams, and we want to be able to expand the love that comes with sports. We have this tendency to foster a community around sports and then spread it around to other parts of the world. My opponents mentioned that we hosted the Baseball World Series, the International Cup for baseball, for a really long time. But in more recent years, we've seen it actually have an international stage. There's an international World's Baseball Tournament that wasn't hosted in the United States this year. And so when we see things like that, we can see that we're taking our passion for sports and we're spreading it around the world. And now what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the passion that the rest of the world has for soccer and bring some of it over here.
Point.
Yes?
If you don't want to give Morocco any money, why should the world come and help you build your game of soccer?
Well, because we are trying to provide it here. We have the means to build it. If we were to give money to Morocco, it's supporting what they already have. Hosting the World Cup in Morocco isn't going to expand the sport there anymore. It can't really get much popular in a place where it's been ubiquitous for a very long time. Like our opponent said, we're behind the curve. We've got a lot of catching up to do. And if we want to catch up, if we want to be able to spread the love, if we want our teams to get any better, we're going to have to take some drastic steps. And if it comes to hosting a World Cup, if we're already the candidate that's able to put forth the most funds, we've already got the stadiums built. My opponents talked a bit about wasting stadiums. We don't want the stadiums we build for the World Cup to go to waste. Unfortunately, we had the misadventure of already building them. So if we don't want them to go to waste, we're going to have to put them to use. And so if we can put our stadiums that we've already built to use, spread the love of soccer around the world just a little bit more, and while we're at it, maybe get just a little bit better at the sport, I think it's, a pretty good chance to give us at least one more shot. With that, I'm going to stand down for the negation, and thank you all for coming today.
Thank you. Now we have some time, just a little bit of time, for a few questions. So if anyone in the audience would like to ask any debater, almost any debater on the stage a question, feel free to raise your hand and I will point a gavel at you. Oh, we have one.
There's a question for everybody. Has anyone here actually ever played soccer or football?
I'm so glad you asked. I actually played for a number of years.
I have played soccer.
I've played soccer.
I played for 12 years.
Me too, badly, but like I did it,
I played reasonably well, and then I got fat, and it kind of all went out.
I played up until 2nd grade, and there was a bitter game which I got called for offsides, and I've never been able to understand that tragic event since then, so I rage quitted.
Well, if you have a game for me to play, I can come play for you.
Do we have any more questions? Oh, I see another one. Would you like to stand in the purple?
Yeah. It's not exactly a question, it's more a statement. The Irish convinced me with just a couple words. I just gotta say that. Honestly, I'm Mexican. I needed no convincing.
All right.
There's always been a great union between Mexican and Irish people,
Yeah.
so come on, may continue.
There's a joke in Ireland that Irish people and Mexican people are the exact same. We both love having fun, but the Irish people just weren't able for the sun. So that's where we're and you're Mexican. So.
Ready? We have a question in the back. Feel free.
For the Irish team. So this is the United States of America, and a lot of people from all over the world come to live here. They become citizens, and they come from a lot of countries that love football. So you kind of deny them the opportunity if they never had the experience before in their home country, and now it's coming here to the United States where it's more readily accessible. How do you speak on people kind of leaving from that and not having the opportunity here?
I feel like if someone came to the United States, they surely couldn't have cared about soccer that much.
I care about soccer, but I'm in the United States.
All right. I think we are good for one more question. Does anyone have a question? Ooh, I see a hand that shot right up.
So, you mentioned a great list of African players. Could you relist those famous players? I think you had one wrong.
I
probably
butchered some pronunciation, but Pele is Ghanaian.
Brazil.
He's
There's two
Brazilian.
Pelés.
Oh, sorry, no, there's
He
two.
plays for
There's,
Brazil.
sorry, no, there's two Pelés. So sorry. So him, the Ghanaian one,
Ghanaian
and then Mo
one, okay.
Salah, Egyptian, and George Weah, Liberian. So I actually know that that's true because I googled it beforehand.
All right, and with that, we're going to close the questions. And I'm going to start basically by thanking everyone. Basically, I want to thank all the organizations who came together to help make this possible. I would like to thank the MTSU team for putting forth so many debaters. And finally, I would like to thank the Irish team for allowing me the chance to butcher anything in Irish. And there is one last person I would like to thank, and it is my wonderful, amazing faculty advisor who would never get angry at me for forgetting to let him speak first. And with that, I would like to introduce someone who put so much work into this and made this all possible. I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Patrick Ritchie.
The reason I wanted to speak is, first of all, thank you all for coming out here, spending, for many of you, a very long Scholars Day on campus, and so finishing that day off with us. And I would also like to thank who helped make this happen. i.e. we're talking about money in sports, international collaboration costs money. And we had some very generous donors. The College of Liberal Arts, we had the Office of International Affairs, the Honors College, which you were sitting in. We had the League of Women Voters, we had Pax Roma, and that is the group that actually sponsors the entire Irish Times tour in the United States. And so they allow folks to travel to the United States and create these intercultural events, which are a phenomenal thing. And then I want to close with one other thing, which is I'm looking at the students who are in the audience. So our team is a walk-on team. They didn't tell you their majors, or well, they did tell you the majors, but we don't have a major requirement at MTSU for debate. It can be any major, any student. If you think you can argue, if you think you can handle what happened here, then you deserve a spot on the team, and we welcome you to join it. And so please think about this. This is something that is open to any student at MTSU. And also, if you are a student here because you're one of those overachievers who needs that extra credit, there is a sign-in sheet right here. Please make sure you sign it legibly and put your professor. Ethan is doing it because Ethan's in my class. So, yes. Please do so. And thank you again for coming. Joey has one more little thing to take care of, and then we will call it an evening.
Yes, thank you. I am very happy to present all of our guests from Ireland with a little token of our appreciation. We like to give these out every year so you can remember our stops, because, you know, on a list that includes some very interesting places like Hawaii, we're not really the most memorable locale, so we gotta give you something. So we have for all of you one of these gavels with your name on it, and our tour for 2024. So first up is going to be.
Thank you so much.
And we have for Louise.
Thank you so much.
And Louise. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Remember be careful on the plane. We don't want them to get. Okay. And so I think that's all we have for you today. Thank you all one more time for coming out. Thanks to our guests for participating and the other members of our team for helping it. I don't think I could have done it by myself. And that's it for us. Thank you all.